Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. My name is Lütge and I'm a professor of business ethics at the Technical University of Munich and director of the TUM Institute for Ethics in Artificial Intelligence. It is my privilege and great pleasure to welcome you all to the Responsible AI Forum, our international conference for all players in the field of AI. We are very excited to welcome representatives from academia, governance, industry, and civil society joining us virtually from all over the world today. As you know, due to recent developments concerning the COVID pandemic, the IEAI team and our conference partner Interplan decided to switch the Responsible AI Forum from an in-person event to a fully online event. This was not an easy decision since we were looking forward to welcoming many face-to-face meetings and interesting live talks here in Munich. However, switching to virtual mode was necessary under the current conditions. On the other hand, this allows us to welcome more participants from all over the world who could not make it to Munich otherwise, which is also great. Thank you again for joining us. Allow me to start by saying a few things about our institute. The IEAI, founded 2 years ago, was one of the first institutes of this kind. As I mentioned during our launching event back in October 2019, we saw the need for such an institute when discussions around AI and AI ethics were not high on the agenda, when AI ethics was not yet a trending topic. We have been among the pioneers who paved the way and underlined the need to address AI ethics-related challenges. Since 2019, we have contributed to the broader conversations and concerns surrounding ethics and AI on an international level. Of course, a lot of things have changed during these years. The growing number of similar institutes and centers working on this topic proves the importance of this field. And this is great because we can build on each other's work to make as much progress as possible in this growing field. The IEAI has accomplished many things in such a short time. During the past 2 years, and despite the difficulties due to the pandemic, we have awarded more than 2.7 million euros in funding for research on AI ethics. We have established 7 research clusters with many projects covering multiple scientific fields. We have founded several new networks, and we have partnered with significant players in AI from academia, from industry such as Celonis, IBM, Mayborn Wolf, Meta, Munich Re, Volkswagen, or Fujitsu, as well as partners from government and civil society. Through international collaborations with key players in the field of AI, participation in the networks and joint initiatives around the globe, organization of events and workshops and scientific research, we systematically seek to identify AI ethics-related challenges, deliver practical and action-oriented outcomes, and develop tangible frameworks, methodologies, and algorithmic tools to provide to AI developers and practitioners a set of ethical best practices. What makes our research distinctive is its inter, multi, and transdisciplinary character, and the fact that we work in interdisciplinary pairs. This research approach enables us to comprehensively address a growing group of ethical challenges arising at the interface of technology and human values. You will have the chance to hear more about our methodology and research outcomes from our highly skilled researchers during their presentations in the parallel sessions. During my talks, interviews, and lectures, I often stress that the technical and the ethical problems are intertwined when it comes to AI. And I firmly believe that the only way to tackle these problems is by joining forces with all the involved stakeholders, including industry, of course. Because we cannot make much progress if we operate in silos. And here at the IEAI, we join forces to develop operational ethical frameworks in the field of AI. This is also why we formed the Global AI Ethics Consortium, the GAIEC, It started actually just when COVID broke out as a network of institutions dealing with responsible AI in the fight against COVID originally, but has expanded now to include many other questions of AI ethics beyond that. Since its launch, the GIIEC has brought together many experts from academic and research centers on 6 continents. And at this conference, we have the pleasure to have some of the GIIEC members joining us virtually from China, from Europe, from the global south, and the US. You can hear inspiring insights from these world-renowned experts at the special GIIEC roundtable. We need to understand how artificial intelligence may impact or be accepted by society in various regions worldwide. This is why we partnered with our colleagues at KNUST in Ghana to form the Responsible AI Network Africa. Through this network, we want to highlight the importance of raising awareness about the ethical considerations related to the development of AI and its potential implications in Africa, the world's 2nd largest and 2nd most populous continent. Our goal is to make RAIN Africa a platform for debate, for discussion and cooperation between Africa's AI stakeholders. Africa cannot and should not be left and will not be left behind. Thus, we have included in our program 2 panels with some of the founding members of RAIN Africa. So AI is already transforming lives, interactions, environments, and societies. We use AI every day without noticing often. Digital assistants, chatbots, face recognition, autonomous vehicles, personalized recommendations are just a few examples of AI applications. The introduction of these increasingly sophisticated AI-enabled systems seeks to improve many areas of our everyday life. And nevertheless, growing concerns about ethical challenges accompany the development of these cutting-edge tools. I believe it is no longer responsible not to use AI, as it is no longer responsible to work on a local, national, or regional basis. Learning global perspectives is the only way to understand complex issues better and gain a holistic view of the limitations, the ethical risks, and benefits of using AI. And this is actually why we decided to organize the Responsible AI Forum. Our major international conference, which was postponed 2 times during the pandemic, is finally happening virtually, thanks to all of you. During these 3 days, we will have the chance to address the most relevant and pressing issues related to the responsible use of AI through shared stories, cutting-edge research, and practical applications. As you have probably seen in the program, in addition to the 5 main stage panels, AI for healthcare, diversity and inclusiveness for responsible AI, AI for mobility, governing AI, role of policy and regulation, and explainability and guidelines for responsible AI. So besides these, our Responsible AI Forum will host parallel sessions and workshops with over 30 different topics presented by about 100 scholars and practitioners. We will all have the opportunity to self-select and dive into the topics of our particular interest in more detail. I strongly encourage everyone to be actively involved with questions, comments, and remarks in the Zoom sessions. Your opinion matters greatly. How do we develop the technology? How do we use technology? And how do we regulate technology? The answers to these questions are not purely technical or technological, but rather in a broad sense, ethical or governmental. And this is what makes AI ethics so important. AI ethics can be the compass that will help us navigate in these uncharted waters, tackle the challenges, and help us shape our future. AI is what we make of it. It is up to us to decide the direction in which we want to go. It is up to us to determine how to use this powerful tool. The only way to deal with skepticism and unlock AI's full potential is by devoting our energy to building trustworthy, explainable, and responsible AI systems. And this is the reason why we are all here today to work together. We are eager to hear the keynotes, presentations, research outcomes, and your comments and remarks during the next days. Please help us make this virtual event as interactive as possible. During the conference, we kindly ask you to include the conference hashtag TRAIF 2021 and our Twitter handle TRAIF 2021 in your posts. This will help our team track and share them in our official Twitter account. Feel free to share quotes, insights, highlights, screenshots, and your TRAIF experience with your followers and TRAIF participants. Thank you in advance for your cooperation and looking forward to sharing your posts. On behalf of the organizers, I would also like to thank Huawei, IBM, and Meta for their kind support. Last but not least, we want to thank you all for making TRAIF happen. We are looking forward to 3 days of exciting talks. So thank you very much. Today, we have the privilege to have with us the Dean of the new TUM School of Social Science and Technology, Professor Urs Gasser. Hi, Urs. For more than a decade, Professor Gasser was the executive director of the Berkman Klein Center for Internet and Society of Harvard University. He recently joined the Technical University of Munich as a professor of policy, public policy, governance, and innovative technology. In addition to his appointment at TUM, he also serves as the rector of the Hochschule für Politik. So, Urs, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Christoph. I'm so delighted to be with you, even if it's a virtual connection today. And I wanted to extend my warm welcome to all the participants. It's just wonderful to see so many colleagues from around the world joining us, coming together from different backgrounds, disciplines, sectors, and walk of lives, as you just pointed out. Let me just allow me, please, to take a moment to first congratulate the Institute for Ethics in AI, led by Christoph Lütge and the Executive Director, Caitlin Corrigan, for what has been achieved in such an incredibly short time. We've heard it, you started in 2019, and I'm just deeply impressed and amazed to see the many projects, collaborative projects and outcomes that you've produced. I think it's really fantastic. And as someone, as you noted, who has been involved in running a center for many years, I know exactly how much work and dedication there is. So congratulations. I'm also particularly thrilled to see that you have chosen to pursue a truly networked and collaborative approach. In just 2-3 years of time, you have positioned the Institute as a true hub on questions related to AI ethics here in Munich, but also internationally. And I very much hope that with the launch of the new School of Social Science and Technology, which you just mentioned, we will have an opportunity to actually double down on these efforts, and also particularly across the different TUM schools here, emphasizing and re-emphasizing the need for bridge building across disciplines and the interdisciplinarity that these hard questions need. Let me just maybe emphasize 2 dimensions in your work again that I think are so vital, and you touched upon them as well, and where I feel the Institute is really leading in important ways and has a broader impact on our community globally. First, as we've already heard, the Institute takes a global view from the get-go, from the start. And you mentioned the launch of the Global AI Ethics Consortium and also the Responsible AI in Africa network. I truly think such a inherently global perspective is decisive at the moment where, at least in my perception, AI is actually threatening to deepen rather than to bridge some of the existing divides and participation gaps between the majority countries, sometimes called the Global South and the West. And I know, and I'm particularly grateful that so many collaborators and colleagues from Global South countries are with us virtually over the next 3 days. And in my view, some of the most interesting innovations, social innovations, where technology and governance and civic entrepreneurship are coming together is happening not in places like here, but in places that we often don't cover as much as we should. The second feature of your work, dear team, led by Christoph, is that both in your daily work as well as in this conference, it seems you take a holistic approach to AI ethics. The work in front of us, the work you're engaged in, does neither suggest that ethics will be enough to deal with all the challenges ahead. So we don't fall into the trap of ethics washing, but it also doesn't diminish the vital role that ethics has to play as we develop and deploy these next generation technologies. It's currently mainstream among many to bash ethics. And I think it's very helpful and important not to do ethic washing, of course, but also not to engage in ethics bashing when it comes to discourse of this sort. In my view, we need as much moral philosophy as we can get. And in some ways, I see the flourishing of AI ethics principles, and we've witnessed many of them and helped to map them over the years, not necessarily as a strategy of avoidance of regulation. And I understand well, that's one legitimate concern and view. But I rather look at these ethic principles and the discourse that comes with it as a critical societal precondition to arrive at what I would call a normative equilibrium that then ultimately can also crystallize and be enshrined into law, like currently on the way in form of the AI Act here in Europe. And also, anyone who knows something about the law and the regulation, and I myself counting myself as an ongoing student of law, will have to admit that even the best laws and the most comprehensive omnibus legislation will not be able to solve the AI challenges that are ahead, which are, as I'm sure we'll discuss in much greater detail over the next few days, which are deeply contextual and granular in nature. And I would hasten to add, actually, the law shouldn't dispense from ethical debates. On the contrary, I would argue, especially with robust AI regulation in place, much AI ethics will be needed as an asset, as a continuous practice, as an approach to knowledge seeking and inquiry across contexts, across stakeholders. And this is work that has to go on, that must be part of the DNA and what we are doing together as we move forward to make sure that we unlock the best this technology has to offer vis-a-vis our global challenges. But of course, even more importantly, that we do not do harm and manage the risks wisely. So I think what I'm so excited about looking at the conference agenda, and I wish I could participate in all the sessions, is that this is an opportunity to also recommit as a community coming from these different sectors, from academia, industry, policy, the worlds of regulation, from communities that are affected by AI, to ask the hard questions, to really engage. And sometimes I'm still worried, are we asking the right questions or just the ones that are in front of us? And I feel this coming together from as many perspectives as possible is what ethics can facilitate, and is what much of the work is that is still in front of us. Although, as I mentioned, we have achieved so much in no small part thanks to the contribution by Christoph and team. I wish you a wonderful 3 days of productive conversations, of hard questions, hopefully many of them unanswered. The work must continue, of course, the research, the policy debates, and I'm so grateful to be part of this and wish you a good time. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Urs, for your kind words, which I happily pass on to my team, and without which this would not have been possible. And I'm grateful for you personally taking the time from your business schedule to join us today, and also, of course, for your uplifting speech. We are looking very much forward to working with you and the new school. Now, before starting our first panel discussion, I would like to welcome also Professor Jürgen Pfeffer, Head of the Department of Governance and Professor of Computational Social Science and Big Data at the TUM school. His research sits at the intersection of social and computer sciences, and he's also principal investigator in several of our research projects here at the IEAI. Jürgen, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christoph, and good morning and welcome everybody to Munich, at least virtually. I also would like to, I mean, Urs already said it in the best ways possible, but I would also like to use this moment to thank Christoph and his team who have been working tirelessly for so long on this event, because Christoph has, as Christoph has told, it has been postponed before. So, and the event here, and I want to focus my comment a little bit on the way I got here and the way my topics got here to this event. But because the event is here called Responsible AI Forum, and we will hear and discuss topics from ethics in the context of autonomous driving to the role of policy and regulations and many more topics. But when you look at my resume, you will realize I'm neither an expert in AI, nor on ethics, nor in legal matters. But I'm still here as a participant in many projects. And the path that brought me to these topics, I think, also puts another focus on this efforts here and this group of people working here, because it shows the responsibility, not just that we have in AI and this development, but also the responsibility that we as a group now have in the challenges ahead and in the political and regulatory processes that are coming up. When I started to, Christoph himself said like a couple of minutes ago that when he started this institute 2 or 3 years ago, the topic of the conference, of the community here, has not been on everybody's agenda. So like when I grew up under the term big data, you know, like in the 0 years. So I was a consultant in the 0 years. I had a good life by doing random things with my computer and making pharmaceutical companies and other people happy by analyzing all the data that I could find. And in 2009, David Laser and his colleagues published this paper in Science that was called Computational Social Science. This was the start of my field, and there were all these hopes that we now can understand society in a better way. Like social scientists have been asking questions for 100 years, and now we have all this data at fingertips. And I'm speaking here, of course, mostly about social media as data source, but all these sensors and all the other things that come into place here. And with the height of the Arab Spring, suddenly people had this assumption that the connecting people, making them work together with these platforms can actually change the world. And but a couple of years later, we have started to observe all these negative dynamics, right? When you look back at the last 10 years, you can really pinpoint every year, every 18 months, we have a new topic. We talk about online firestorms, about social bots, about fake news, about polarization, about hateful speech. So every year we develop some new topics that we then as computational social scientists work on. And it took us a couple of years longer, and actually just there is this realization recently that all these topics that we observe here, they are all connected to the very topic that we discuss here at the conference. And we realize that all these negative dynamics that come randomly out of these systems are a side effect of all these bigger questions, of all these questions that lead us back to what do we think about, how should people, what's the role of people and machines in these systems, what are the ethical concerns, what are the technical limitations, not just from a technical side, but from a societal side. And when we look today, like as I said, like a couple of years ago, everything was about big data and the problems and the concerns and the optimizations and the potentials. When I look today, like just look it up, the special committee on the artificial intelligence in the digital age had a meeting last week, and they had 2 agenda points. The one was the impact on bias on the development of trustworthy AI, and the second one was algorithmic accountability and data governance, how to reduce bias in AI systems. So what we discuss here is exactly what is politically discussed on all levels these days. And I had a meeting 2 or 3 weeks ago with members of the European Parliament, and we discussed a little bit what is formally called the proposal for a regulation of the European Parliament and of the Council laying down harmonized rules on artificial intelligence and amending certain union legislation acts, which is now known, of course, as the AI Act. But what these people working in the European Parliament also told me that starting February, March, these topics will be discussed not just in the special committee on AI, they will be discussed in every parliamentary committee on European level. So this will be everywhere, from healthcare, from transportation, from every logistical and political topic will discuss this AI Act and its implications in our society. So that's what I meant when I talk about the responsibility for this community, people from different areas like myself, ending up here in a community like this, because this is now the topic of the day and the topic of the time. So we do have responsibility now also, and we need to be on the forefront of this, not just on a scientific level, but also in these political discussions. Having said all this, I'm looking forward to listen to your presentations during the next couple of days, and I'm most of all looking forward to learn a lot of you guys, because as I have said before, I'm a newbie in many of these topics. But once again, thanks to everybody who helped to make this event possible, but also to everybody who will be actively participating in this discussion, because there is so much things that we all can learn from each other. Thank you, Christoph, and thanks to everybody.
Thank you very much, Jürgen, for being here and sharing your thoughts with us. And we are also looking very much forward to working further with you.